Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. We are environmental science students at the University of Central Florida, and it is a pleasure to be able to speak to you today. First off, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Ideas for Us, for giving us the opportunity to talk about water conservation and its importance in the 21st century. To introduce myself, I am Kyle.
I'm Lauren.
I'm Shay.
I'm Kaitlyn.
And I'm Olivia.
Here is a breakdown of what we will be discussing in this presentation, divided into 5 helpful and insightful sections. Now, to our next presenter.
All right, so before we get any further, we wanted to give you guys a quick overview of water quality testing since it's the most common way to determine water quality. So when we say water quality testing, what is it we mean? So what is water quality? When we test for water quality, we're usually looking at things like nutrient load, dissolved oxygen levels, bacteria content, and metals. There's actually over 30 different water parameters that we can test, but those are some of the most common. And especially here in Central Florida, things like bacteria, excess nutrients, and sediment accumulation are responsible for the majority of water quality deterioration. So why do we need to test water quality? Generally, we need to know what's happening to that water body to make sure it's healthy for us to drink or recreate in. If it's unhealthy for us to be near, there's a very high chance that the water is also harming the species that we consume, like fish, which can be very unsafe. Alternatively, the water quality can be so poor that aquatic and marine species can no longer survive in those conditions. This can escalate very quickly depending on the severity of the situation. So it's important to routinely test water quality to make sure that large die-offs don't occur. So now that we're all on the same page, it's a good time to explore Central Florida's water body health.
All right, and then so there are 12 watersheds or drainage basins, 1 aquatic preserve, and 367 lakes in Orange County, Florida alone. A watershed is a region that contributes to nearby lakes, rivers, streams, or wetlands. And understanding that there is a connection between these waterways makes water pollution a large concern. And speaking of aquatic reserves, the Wekiva River is located in the beautiful Wekiwa State Park, which is actually only 33 minutes from UCF campus. Not only is this park beautiful, it has an array of recreational activities, which may include, of course, observing some super cool aquatic organisms like manatees, kayaking, or enjoying a super nice boat ride, exploring underwater caves in the springs, and of course, relaxing down the river. Unfortunately, according to the EPA, 99% of assessed water bodies in Orlando, Florida are considered impaired. These impairments are related to the amount of pollution that has occurred in or near the water bodies surveyed. So this next slide dives more into the EPA's data and shows the water body impairment category percentages in Orlando, Florida. For example, 64% of all water bodies surveyed had high levels of nitrogen and or phosphorus, and that also goes for all the other contaminants listed here as well. So a major source of water pollution is runoff. Surface runoff occurs when there is more water than the land can absorb. This liquid can readily pick up chemicals, litter, fertilizer, petroleum, and other toxic substances. This can lead to biomagnification, where the pollutants are distributed up the food chain, increased turbidity or cloudiness in the water, and algal growth. So a few examples of these effects include harmful algae blooms, also called HOBs. And so these can actually be detrimental to aquatic life, causing fish kills, as pictured above, which is caused by the decrease of dissolved oxygen that is taken from the algae blooms. And finally, this last picture actually shows an example of what turbid water looks like, or cloudiness in the water, and that's actually caused by sediment erosion and accumulation, And if you see that yellow structure right there, that actually is a turbidity barrier that's commonly used during construction or land development. Lastly, switching gears to drinking water, here is a chart created by the Orange County Utilities Annual Drinking Water Report of 2021 for the Eastern Regional Water System, which serves UCF and the majority of Eastern Orlando. And this kind of highlights the contaminants that were found. For example, copper is likely a source of contamination by the corrosion of household plumbing systems. Unfortunately, though, we did have no MCL violations or maximum contaminant load violations, but of course, these contaminants are still trace in the water that we have here in Central Florida.
All right, so how do humans impact water quality? I found this quote from the United States Geological Survey that sums up humans' impact on water quality fairly well. It reads, urban and industrial development, farming, mining, combustion of fossil fuels, stream and channel alteration, animal feeding operations, and other human activities can change the quality of our natural waters. So in essence, everything that humans do to sustain themselves can harm our water. While it's not reasonable to just stop population growth and human development, there are quite a few things that we can do to solve these massive problems.
So this leads us to what we are doing to fix our water quality. In Central Florida, we have 4 main methods, which include stormwater structures to reduce debris and nutrients running into waterways, smart planting, which increases mulch and tree-dense areas to reduce irrigation, sustainable development, specifically in South Downtown Orlando, and waste pretreatment, which is the removal of pollutants in industrial wastewater. So stormwater structures have a few different methods. One is a baffle box, which is a structure with a series of chambers to remove trash, debris, and sediment by allowing them to settle. And the box is then vacuumed to properly dispose the sediment, and it allows the clean water to flow through and enter the waterways. We also have inlet baskets, which are basically just screens used to capture debris and allow just water to flow through. And bar screen systems are similar to this, but they are for larger scale debris, and they remove big solid objects from entering the waterways. And then an alum treatment is when you disperse aluminum sulfate into lakes, and it binds to the phosphorus, making it unavailable for algae growth. And shoreline planting is also a way to reduce pollutants entering waterways from stormwater drains as a more natural resource. And then we have smart planting. So a lot of parks in Orlando use a lot of mulch, and this decreases the amount of irrigation needed, helping to conserve water. And most parks here use pine needles rather than bark mulch, as it is more sustainable and abundant, and also a more affordable option. And then sustainable development. So downtown Orlando is expected to have very rapid growth, especially in South Downtown. And so one way Orlando is doing this is by using low impact development. And this uses processes that result in infiltration, evapotranspiration, or stormwater use to protect water quality and also help conserve water. And then we have waste pretreatment. So industrial waste pretreatment requires different industries like manufacturers, commercial businesses, mining, agriculture, and wastewater to clean their water by using a pretreatment. And so this includes removing or reducing pollutants in wastewater prior to discharge into the public water supply.
All right. And now what can we, the residents, do to protect our water? So here I broke it down into 5 groups. Plastics, reducing single-use plastics, correctly sorting in your recyclables, limiting your daily water intake, especially using technology, and only having rain in the drain, no dumping of debris or chemicals into our drains, and of course, helping your local nonprofit and county efforts to help the environment. Plastics, micro versus macro. Macro we see all the time, like water bottles in our landfills, but microplastics, basically macro, but over time they break down, but they never really go away. So they're about 0.5 millimeters in size or smaller. And they get into our landfills, our waterways, our bodies, and our water bodies. So to combat that, we have really, really amazing alternatives, especially reusable water bottles, which are really common today, and reusable containers, grocery bags, straws, and sustainable toothbrushes, since these are all commonly use plastic to be made. It's really good to have that alternative so we don't use that many single-use products. Recycling, sorting recycling is really important because when you don't sort your recycling correctly, you leave trash or food or anything that's not recyclable. When they're in the plant recycling that, all of that gets actually thrown into our trash and increasing our landfill mass. So it's very important to sort correctly so all of your recyclables don't go to waste. And then reuse, finding new uses for your products. If you have an old watch that you've been meaning to fix it, don't pitch it. If you have maybe a glass that you finished a drink of, maybe use it to make a candle, or find new different uses for it, where you can kind of bring new life into it. All right, in our stormwater drains, in Orange County, that's our label. So first off, chemicals in our storm drains. Our storm drains actually don't get treated like our toilets in our shower water does. There is nothing other than those alum treatments that you heard about before that really goes into it. So all that chlorine from people dumping their pool water goes straight into our water supply. All of that fertilizer and pesticide runoff when it rains in July, all of that gets into our stormwater drains. And all of those trees or dirts, if you see any of your neighbors just dumping branches or anything into our storm drains, that does not belong there. Please do not put anything other than storm water in our drains. Water consumption technology, I find this really interesting, especially the average gallons per minute for our shower heads in America is about 2.5. So imagine your 30-minute shower per year. That's so many gallons of water. So there's the special shower heads that are 1.5 gallons per minute, and they help save so much water. Also, timed irrigation. There's some nicer irrigation systems that actually detect when there's been rain, and so your yard has already been watered, so it doesn't overwater on top of that. And of course, water conserving toilets that we have at UCF as well. It's all over. And then checking for leaks. If you do have a water system, an irrigation system, that will cost so much water in the future, so please do maintenance checks. And also reducing your shower time. Maybe that 30-minute shower can turn into 15. And then awareness, pursuing education and workshops like these, being able to talk to people about it and spreading all the awareness that we can, especially in Florida. Water conservation is such a big issue, that really getting out there, especially as young people, it's really important to get ourselves educated. And volunteer, I think, is especially important. Ideas for Us is a wonderful nonprofit organization about sustainability. You can volunteer like we have by planting trees right at UCF. Interning, you can do cleanups, gardening, so much more. There's a link there, or you can Google it for Ideas for Us volunteering. Also looking into local county initiatives. At Orange County, I know there's storm drain labeling projects and community cleanup projects that are very easy to get involved with. And if you're not from Orange County, then look up your county initiatives. There are so many ways that we can protect our water system and our waterways in Florida. We just have to look.
You have learned and heard much in today's presentation, but there is much, much more that we have not discussed. Continue to consider furthering your education of water conservation and water science by following this QR code to a website which discusses 100 more ways you can conserve water. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation, and have a great day.